Welcome to Vital 100, the podcast designed to take your health to the next level.
Hello, this is Dr. Bob Johnson. Very excited to be with you again today. What is the cause of disease or illness? It doesn't just happen out of the blue. People don't just all of a sudden get cancer or diabetes or chronic fatigue or some thyroid issue. It really has underlying causes. That's what we're going to talk about today is what are the primary causes of the disease, and not to say this will absolutely prevent you from getting disease, but what's important is the more of these you attend to or avoid contracting, the less likely you will get disease or an illness. The stronger will be your systems that resist it. So basically, here's what is very important, is that if you strengthen your body, that's the systems like the immune system, the detoxification system, the nutrient absorption system, the hormone system, all those systems of the body and functions of the body, the more your body will be able to resist those diseases and illnesses. Again, not to say that you'll avoid them, but you will get much less likely to get them. And many of the causes of illness are not very well known. It's important to understand how to minimize these real causes of disease or illnesses. Now, the concept which we previously talked about was identifying the causes of illness versus the symptoms. Things like headaches or even something like diabetes or cancer, these are really symptoms of the body breaking down and it can't function anymore, and it translates or it makes its appearance as disease or illness. We had in a previous podcast, we had gone over the 8 underlying causes, things like toxicity and infections, stress, genetic issues, hormonal imbalances, nutritional imbalances, but we want to be able to identify those. And today, I'm going to go over what are actually the most important and the most frequent causes of disease or illness. Let's first of all talk about nutrition. If you don't get in the right nutrients, then your body cannot function. It functions on getting the broken down food that we eat to the systems that need it. So, for example, if you don't get enough water, if you don't get enough amino acids, which are breakdowns of proteins, if you don't get the essential fatty acids, those kinds of building blocks, then the body cannot heal. It can't repair itself. It can't function. One example is, as I said, water. If you are dehydrated, which many of my patients are, then you are not going to be able to function because we are 70% water. And if you're dehydrated, all the systems start shutting down. One example of that is dementia and or brain problems are going to be appearing very quickly if you are chronically dehydrated. Another thing is the deficiency of magnesium. Magnesium is a very important thing, and it's the necessary nutrient for so many enzymes to function in the body. And so many people have a magnesium deficiency. One of the first manifestations of that is you can't get to sleep or you have muscle spasms. So nutrient deficiencies are very important. And it's not just what you eat that's important, it's how you digest and how you absorb it into the bloodstream and how it's carried to all the cells and the tissues and the organs where it's needed. We are going to go into that in a little more detail in a further podcast, but just suffice it to understand that good nutrition isn't just what you eat, it's what you digest and what you absorb and transport to the cells. That's so important. Understand that people process foods very much differently from one person to another. So what you read on the internet or what you hear someone taking may be good, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's your specific thing. I myself personally like to keep testing different things. I have a very good foundational nutrition, and I digest my meals very well and transport them to the tissues, but I keep fine-tuning about, should I eat this, should I eat something different? So those are the things that I work with on myself, and everyone should test and see what's right for them or not right for them. The next big underlying cause is the absorption or the exposure to toxicity. Now, toxins are basically poisons that enter the body in various ways, and they interfere with the function of the cells. They interfere with the function of the tissues and the organs. And toxins can be many forms. They can be heavy metals. They can be toxins that, when we're constipated, we aren't getting rid of. They can be chemicals. They can be vaccines that you aren't detoxifying, or hormones that are used up and you aren't detoxifying. So toxins can come from many different sources, and it's important that you be able to get rid of those toxins that either form when you're eating and digesting or when you're exposing yourself, or to minimize the exposure of these toxins. I continually find sources of toxins that I have to tell people about or that I myself avoid. Some of the biggest sources are in foods with pesticides and preservatives that they use in the foods. Cosmetics or skincare things that are absorbed into the body are a very big source of toxicity. Things that we drink in our water, those are all sources of toxicity. One of the things that qualifies as a toxicity is the exposure to electromagnetic frequencies in our cell phones and so forth. And that really is very toxic to the body, but that'll be a subject to talk about later on. What's important with toxicity is that we're able to have a good functioning liver, a good functioning kidney, a good functioning detoxification through the skin, because these are the pathways to get rid of toxins. And even though you may be eating very clean food, if you're not getting rid of the toxins, then they are being retained and very much jeopardize your body and are a big source of disease or illness. We'll talk more about toxins later on. Another big thing that causes illness that people experience on a regular basis is that of stress. Now, stress just doesn't emotional stress that we have, our job, our relationship, financial stresses. Yes, those are stresses, but there are other stresses. For example, if you have some kind of trauma and you have a lot of inflammation in your body, or you have an allergic reaction, those kind of things are stresses too. And the body handles it by secreting a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and if you have too much cortisol in your body or you have too much stress, then you secrete a lot of cortisol. And even though cortisol is good for short-term acute stress, like dodging a car or if you're running away from a rabid dog, those are all things that are very important that cortisol helps you with. But the long-term chronic stresses like chronic pain are very damaging to the body and can age the body very much so. So it's important to understand that we need to decrease stress in the body so that you minimize that cortisol production. And there's various techniques we'll go over. We'll have other podcasts that will describe various techniques to decrease stress, but the way you handle it in your mind is very important. There are certain techniques we call emotional freedom technique, EFT, which you can look up on the internet. EFT, or emotional freedom technique, is a way to dissipate stress. So if you're in a traffic jam and you're very stressed, it's a way to be able to tap various points on the body while you're concentrating on that stress and have that stress dissipated. So you can use it anywhere, anytime. If you're stressed while you're going to bed, you can do it. If you're stressed, say, going into an exam or going in for an interview, you can actually concentrate on that interview or test, tap the certain points, which, as I said, you can find out what those points are on the internet, looking up emotional freedom technique, and you can dissipate that stress. So it's a very useful technique because it's so easy to apply. You can do it anywhere at any time. And certain foods, certain things we take in that can really help you minimize stress. But the most important thing is to identify it and be exposed to it much less, and it will decrease the amount of disease or illness you get. Some people can handle stress more than others, but mostly people who deal with a lot of stress all the time and are under deadlines are secreting so much cortisol that it really shortens their life and brings on a lot of illness. The next source of disease is one of genetics. Now, our genetics was mapped out about 15 years ago. Now, we identified the different genes in the body and now know that different genes actually control certain functions, the health of us, and it's important to now know what genes you have as mutations, meaning that are not functioning well, and as they're associated with a particular disease. So if you have the mutations, or what we call the gene SNPs, SNPs, short for single nucleotide polymorphism, basically it means a mutation. If you have the genes that are controlling your sugar metabolism and they are mutated, meaning they aren't functioning very well, you can indeed be much more susceptible to picking up that disease. For instance, diabetes or heart disease or cancer. And so certain genes are associated with certain diseases. The mapping of the gene, or being able to test your genetic makeup, which is basically swabbing the inside of a cheek and sending it off to the lab, very simple now to do, is critically important, because if you know what diseases you're more susceptible to based on what you inherited from your mother and your father and previous generations, then you can take the certain precautions to make sure that doesn't happen. For example, if you have the genetic proclivity to have heart disease, you can make sure that you're going to be an exerciser, you're eating the right things, you're not taking a lot of sugars, and you're getting the essential fatty acids, and you're keeping the circulation in your heart up and your cardiovascular system going, so that it's very unlikely that you will have cardiovascular disease if you know what you're susceptible to and how to take care of it. We can do that now, and that is important because your genetic makeup is one of the greatest causes of disease or illness, and no longer do you have to feel like you're a slave to your genetics. You can control it much better than you thought. And it is very easy to do a genetic test. As I said, it's not invasive, and it's relatively inexpensive to be able to do that, and you can find out a big potential source of illness that you can prevent. For those of you who are interested in getting your genetics evaluated, and it is indeed an easy test, please contact me at info@vital100wellness.com. The last source of illness or cause of illness that I'd like to talk about is the lack of exercise or physical activity. Humans are meant to be active. We are not meant to be driven everywhere and have the totally easy life where you're not exercising, because our muscles need exercise to be able to grow, evolve, to be able to be healthy. Our heart needs physical exercise to be healthy. We need to detoxify and to have our immune system be stronger, which is greatly influenced by our physical activity level. So people who do not maintain a daily physical activity are indeed going to be unhealthy. I always tell the people I'm coaching that if you are not physically active, you are not going to be healthy. It is just absolutely critical. And what's interesting is physical activity can overcome a huge amount of missteps and things you're not doing well, like if you're eating things that aren't so healthy or you're under stress, those kind of things that would cause disease. If you're physically active on a regular basis, it will overcome those. And I like to divide the physical activity up into 3 categories. One is cardiovascular, which is things like biking and running and swimming that are going to raise your heart level up, and that will stress the heart but strengthen the heart. The second thing that's very important to have physical fitness, to be healthy from a physical perspective, is that of weight bearing or resistance training, doing weights to strengthen various muscles. And what's interesting is if you have better, well-developed muscles, especially the big muscles, then you will have a better metabolism. You will keep the weight down because these bigger muscles, when they have a better metabolism, because they are being exercised, will burn fats and have you be healthier. So weight bearing or resistance training is absolutely critical to be healthy. And if you aren't exercising, if you aren't physically active, then it's going to be not good for your health. The last thing in physical exercise is that of stretching. If you aren't stretching, if you aren't elongating those muscles, then they're going to get very tight, you're going to get hunched over, you're going to get very inflexible, and so it's important to be stretching as the third component of that physical activity. And I always like to say that when you do the resistance training, if you strengthen a muscle, then you stretch it, that is going to be the best for both the stretching and the resistance training. So to reiterate, your diet, your ability to minimize toxins and get rid of it from the body, the ability to handle stress, the genetics are going to be a huge part of your overall health, and physically activity is going to help you be very, very healthy. If you do all those, you will avoid illness and disease at a much higher level, and for that matter, you'll live longer, and you will avoid the doctor that you don't have to go to because you are ill. You need to invest some time, energy, and money to be healthy. Understand that you've got to invest these times. You've got to have a little time into it. You've got to invest a little bit of money to get good foods and to maybe join a gym or that kind of thing. Many of these things can be very inexpensive, but you really do need to invest time, energy, and money to be healthy. On the back end, if you are healthy, you're going to avoid a lot of expenses, especially if you are avoiding end-stage disease and illness. If you do indeed maintain a healthy lifestyle, you will live a long, healthy life, and one which will have much more energy, and you will enjoy a very high quality of life. For those of you who are interested in having a personal health coach to guide you through some of these things and to customize it to your actual health needs, or you have a disease that is beginning and you want to prevent it or reverse it, please contact us at info@vital100wellness.com, and we will indeed contact you to arrange a time to do some health coaching. I want to thank you very much for joining us here, and always remember to enjoy the journey.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Vital 100. Please check out our website, vital100wellness.com, for other ways to listen to our podcast, as well as additional health resources. If you have questions for Dr. Bob, or if you have feedback or recommendations for the podcast, please send an email to info@vital100wellness.com.